And we're back to the Dwarven Mead. So, on 115 we started this, and I don't know if you can tell from this angle, but there's a hefty croissant line around this one. This one took off. And I'm not sure if it was from the sweet potato or the beet or the insane amount of nutrients we put in this one, but it fermented. It is showing neutral pressure right now, which does not mean it's done. And it's clearing out very nicely, has a very healthy yeast cake on the bottom. I'm going to assume primary fermentation has finished. But the only way to know that is to remove the cap, inspect it. You know what? It smells pretty good. And now we're going to need to take a reading. Hmm. 0.990. Cool. It started off as a 1.100. So I'm going to put the actual ABV of it right here. But that's pretty good. Now I'm going to take a little sample for a few reasons. One, it is this beautiful amber color right now. Like, beautifully red, rather clear for right out of primary. It smells good. It smells young. I still smell a lot of the gases in it that typically come from primary fermentation, and they will age out by the time this thing is in a week or two of secondary. So, nothing to worry about. I'm going to give it a swirl. Now, when you swirl it in the glass like this, it does a couple of things. It degasses it a bit. It extracts a lot of the aromatics, so you can get a really good scent of it. When it runs inside the glass, you can see by what the legs are how thick it is, which is an indication of what the mouthfeel is going to be. Oh, there are some fun flavors in here. It's still rather young, so I don't want to judge it just yet. I'm really trying to see if there's enough acid and tannins in it before I put it into secondary, because this is a nice point where you can add. As far as the acidity, there's definitely some acidity to it. And the tannins, it has a good mouthfeel. It coats and then kind of lingers for a little while, and then it washes clear. But nice. I will say, I'm not getting any sweet potato, which is good. That's kind of what I wanted. I just wanted it for the body, which it delivered. You definitely don't taste beet, and I don't think you ever will. I don't think that's going to resurface. It was to color it, and color it, it definitely did. I'm getting that little extra something that came from the mushrooms itself. So, all in all, I'm pleased with it at this stage. I think we're ready to rack. And today, I'm going to rack it right into its secondary fermenter. Because why? Because there's no real need to put it into a pitcher. I'm not adding anything to it today. The only time I do it into a pitcher is when I want to either degas it for whatever reason, or add something to it, or find out what the volume is. Now, before I even start, in these fermenters, right around where that line is around the 1 gallon mark. So I know this fermenter holds a little over a gallon. I'm not worried about this one overtaking this one. If you are worried, you might want to rack into a pitcher first or a bigger vessel and know what your measurements are. Know what this can hold and what this has in it. That's really the only thing you have to do. Now I'm leaving the cap on my siphon, and if I get a little bit of the sediment, I'm not overly worried. The color is so funky. It's almost like deep red to where I'd say it's even a purplish, which, you know what, for Dwarven Mead, I think that kind of makes sense. All right, let's let this go through, and I'll see you on the other side. Alright, so you see how we have minimal headroom right now? Well, I never racked this back into here. So let's start by slowly just adding. I want to point out, no fermentation is going to happen in secondary. So you don't need a whole lot of headroom. However, I don't want the bung to touch the liquid. So I might have half a beaker worth of stuff. There's really not much I can do about that besides drink it. And it's young, it's a little rough, it's super dry. I can already tell I might need a touch of sweetness. I'm going to put the original label back on. Now, as far as the little bit of sweetness, I might decide to back sweeten this. And that might be done in a pitcher, and I might need a larger fermenter for, let's call it tertiary, or before we bottle it. But it's still super gassy. It's literally 9 days old. I'm not ready to make that decision just yet. So all I'm going to do at this point is put the stopper back on, which I think fits in this one, and it does. Put the stopper back in. I wrote a brand new note, which is today's date, which is 1/27, and the gravity, 0.0990. And that's also going to go on here. So now I know I racked it, and I know what the new gravity is. So really, what we're going to do next is let this sit for maybe a week or two, and let it start to clear a little bit, let it degas a little bit, and then we can make arrangements on what we're going to do to this next. Until then, I'm going to finish this, and I'll see you guys there. And so we got here. So this has been sitting for a few weeks now, a little bit longer. This was put into secondary on 1/27/2023, and today is 2/12/2023. So long enough. And I'll tell you what, it is crystal clear. So what we did worked, and that's awesome. Next thing I'm going to want to do is rack this into a pitcher. For that, we're going to need a little bit of a setup though. So let's just get right to it. Easy, right? Now, let's remove the airlock carefully. Don't need it anymore, so it's just going to go to the side. Now, I have a concern. There is really no headroom in here. And I'm scared that when I put the auto siphon in, I'm going to overflow it. So we're going to be even more careful than normal while racking this. And drip sanitizer all over yourself while doing it too. That's fun. Exactly what we wanted. So carefully this is going in. And look at that. Masterwork in process. Easy. Now, there's a little bit of waste that got cloudy towards the end. And unfortunately, waste is always going to happen when you make a mead, wine, beer, anything. You have to just not focus too hard on it and move forward with the steps. I'm going to get rid of this as well. So now, before we bottle this, we want to try it. We want to see if there's any modifications that are going to need to be added to this to make it drinkable. What I mean by that is the mouthfeel good, or do we need more tannin? Is the acidity level good, or do we need to add some kind of citrus to it? Is the sweetness level where we want it, and are we going to enjoy drinking it at that level? It's a lot easier to add more than take away, but still, it's good to know, and this is the time to know it. Pour yourself a little sample, and right off the bat, it is this gorgeous ruby color, which is the beet. It's literally all the beet. That's what this was here for. But it is crystal clear. It's almost gem-like. For a Dwarven mead, that makes sense to me. On the smell, it smells rich, earthy. It smells dry. I have no sweetness in here, and there shouldn't be any sweetness in here. It stopped at a 0.999, and nothing in there would give a residual sweetness. But let's try it. Maybe we want sweetness. Now we'll know. It has a fun amount of flavors in it. A lot of earth tones, very subtle hints of potato. There's that something that I'm going to say is definitely the mushroom, like the umami flavor of it. It's good. Mouthfeel coats your mouth. Acidity level, I get the acidity from the mead itself, from the honey itself. It hits you almost in the back of the throat. It's good. I wouldn't add more citrus. I would like to make this a touch sweeter. I think it would really balance it out nicely. And there are options. So stick with me for 1 second. We could add honey. That would make it sweet. We could add white table sugar. That would make it sweet. Both are great options, but you would have to pasteurize it or chemically stabilize it afterwards, or you'd be creating a bomb. This was up there in ABV. I want to say this is like 14.5%, if I remember correctly. I didn't write it down, and that's on me. But I'll put it right here just so you know. And even though it's not likely that it would re-ferment, especially it's crystal clear, it looks pretty. I'm just going to say I don't think it would ferment, but I still would not recommend bottling it with a sugar in it. You never know. The yeast don't know what their level is. And we did move it around, put in different vessels. It's possibly going to create a bomb if you do that. And if you, maybe your hydrometer wasn't exactly accurate, or maybe your reading was a little off, and maybe it's not 14.5%, but it's 13.5%. Well, that 1% worth of ABV that yeast still want to work, depending on the strain, if it's a 16% ABV, it's going to still try to edge towards that, create carbon, and probably explode your bottles. We don't want that, so we're not going to do that. What I am going to do today is add a little bit of erythritol. It is a non-fermentable sugar, and for this application, I think it'd be just fine. So the question is how much? And the answer is, how sweet do you want it? In my case, I'm only adding a little bit. I want a touch of sweetness in there because I think it needs it for balance. But if you like sweet brews, you might want to add more and make it sweeter. Just add a little bit at a time until you hit the level of sweetness you want. I'm going to grab my erythritol and be right back. All right, let's sprinkle a little bit in. And then mix thoroughly. You have to mix it at this point. Otherwise, all the sugar stays at the bottom of the pitcher, does not sweeten your brew, and does not end up in your bottles. The unfortunate part about this is it's going to temporarily make it hazy again. But that will clear out in a couple of days. It's just the nature of the beast. This is also still very gassy, but it's young, so that makes sense. But that degassing sound is good. It means it's preventing me from accidentally oxidizing this brew. We're getting there. All right. And there we go. So I added roughly half a cup of erythritol to 1 gallon of product. And I have a nice sweetness level. It really helps. It kind of mellows everything together and makes it, how do I say this any better, more enjoyable. It's a good brew on its own, but with a little bit of sweetness, I'm loving it. And I'm loving the color. And really fun project here. So next thing we're going to do is bottle this. Now I'm going to link a video on bottling, and I'll try to put a card right here on my bottling video if you want to know how to bottle your brew. But it's not really good TV, so I'm not going to keep showing it in every video, and I'll see you as soon as it's done. And wasn't that easy? Actually, it was not. This was one of the worst bottlings I've done in a long time. You see, even if you know your equipment, even if everything is set up to give you success, the thing is that you should never turn your back while bottling. Even if you have a bottling wand with that little stopper on the end, well, you see, mine got jammed. So even though I let go of it, thinking I could go do something real quick and then continue the bottling, I walked away for a couple minutes and it kept flowing. So it went into the neck and then overflowed. And I walked back a minute later and there was about maybe a bottle worth of product all over my floor, which is sad and completely preventable. And I'm only telling you guys this because one, that was a lot of liquid I had in that pitcher, and I only got 3.5 bottles out of it, and I should have gotten closer to 5. So I will tell you guys that so you can learn from my mistakes and not do what I did. However, we're going to continue moving forward. I'm going to take a piece of blue painter's tape and label each bottle so that in 6 months from now, when I have 17 bottles of red liquid in one box and I need to give somebody a gift for something, I know what everything is. Or, more importantly, when I go to D&D this week and I want to bring a bottle of mead, I have a Dwarven mead I can bring, which is kind of exciting. And if any of them are watching this, they're going to know about it before we go. You don't have to use blue painter tape for these bottles. The thing is, these bottles are reusable, and I do reuse them time and time again. When I finish a bottle, I wash it out, I let it dry, and right before I bottle, I sanitize them. If I put a really nice label on each bottle, those bottles do not, well, they're not the most reusable. Plus, those labels are expensive, and I like to use them for more of gifts and big things like that. However, if you have a label maker and you want to label these however you want, you can do that. Just know if you want to reuse the bottles time and time again, you want to have a label that you can easily take off. This bottle, though, is a problem, and that's because there's way too much headroom. I can't store this one. So what I'm going to do is put a cap on it, put it in the fridge, and probably finish it tonight or tomorrow. Or right now. Because I'm enjoying this mead, and I think it's worth having a drink. After all, you took the time, you brewed it, you played with it, you made it the way you liked it, you might as well enjoy it. Anyway, guys, if you liked today's video, please hit the like button. If you hit the notification bell or subscribe, you will know when I post new videos. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the video below, and I will happily get back to you as soon as I can. But guys, that's all I have for today. So I'm Phil, this was Phil with Facts, and until next time, cheers.